turnout include
Here.
Chris Johnson,
Here.
Ned Luss,
Here.
Darrell Young is running 1 minute late, he'll be here. Jim Reeder,
Here.
and Doug Potts.
Here.
Okay, if we could just take a moment of silent reflection or silent prayer, please. Thank you. First order of business is approval of minutes. And it's the minutes of the July 27th, 2020 meeting that was held at Northmore Schools. And I will entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I so move.
Charlotte, and a second.
I'll second it.
Lori. Okay, any corrections or changes or discussion? Hearing none, I entertain a motion to approve the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you very much. President's report. I'll start off here. First of all, this is, I think we've used the word unprecedented too many times here with COVID, but this clearly is with our first full live stream meeting and the capability of having our members type in questions during the open comment section or the new business. So I hope everybody will have some patience with us tonight. We're going to work through some bugs, I'm sure. We'll get better for it the next time. But the whole COVID thing has been difficult for everybody, and we would much rather have all of our members here with us in this meeting. But we're going to do the very best we can and continue to learn as we go through this. One of the reasons why this is streamed live by YouTube, we're also looking at other solutions like Zoom. We got a headline today that Zoom crashed today because of school starting and heavy usage. So I hope that Candlewood doesn't crash the YouTube system today. But anyway, I appreciate your patience. We will respond to as many questions as we can during the new business and the member participation. And if we don't get to yours, we'll do so by email after the fact. So that's our environment. I just want to say we're going to do the very best we can. And thank you all for your patience, and thanks to all the board for all your work and diligence with this. Committee engagement. I talked about this at one of the first, either the June or July meeting, but as you know, the committees were shut down for, I think it was 3 months at least, back when COVID first started, and really no meetings whatsoever. But our committees are back up and running again. Really, thanks to all the committee heads and the board members and the non-board members that had committees, which some are here tonight. You all are doing a great job under a difficult circumstance. And as we know, the last month, you've been working under the gathering recommendations of 10 or less, and again, doing a great job moving along. The committees are where our members get involved in our governance, so it's a critical part of our governance. And again, thanks again to all the committees for all the work that you do in bringing things to the board and making changes, etc. The third item is more of a somber thing, but I did receive a resignation this week, and then ended up accepting that resignation from Bill Grubb as a board member. Bill has been on the board for about 1.5 years now, and not only a board member, he's on the executive committee. He was the vice president of the board, and also you may know Bill from his tenure on the Fishing and Boating Club, which he's done so many good things. I just want to say thanks to Bill. I hope you're out there listening tonight. But on behalf of the entire represented the people, and did a great job with Candlewood. I just want to say thanks for the entire board. And last thing is, I'll see you out on the lake. Okay. Member Town Hall this Saturday. That's the next item I wanted to talk about. And I'll just say it's about all things voting. And I have had some discussion with certain members and emails and whatnot about, in this environment, why we want to do a town hall and about the voting and everything. And I get that, and I respect everybody's views on that. But I just want to say there's more things to it than just one item. And I know what the hot button item is, but there's more to it. And our first two meetings were filled with member feedback, and we've had a ton since then about how security is performed, particularly on the lake. So a big part of that town hall is about Doug is going to address the plans and the efforts that we're going to be undertaking over the days, weeks, and certainly I am definitely not an attorney, and I've never played one on television before, but I have talked to some pretty smart people that understand a lot about Ohio law with respect to voting, and I'll talk very high level about that, how it impacts Candlewood, and how it impacts our thinking about our rules and regulations and our enforcement. And then the third piece of that, of course, we had a voting work group that has been doing some really good work over the past few months, and Chris Johnson will introduce some of the summary findings from that. We'll talk about them. One of the hot button items, I'm not going to shy away from it, is the situation with registering or not registering wake boats. And as you know, we've been on both sides of that before, and it's call it a hot potato or a hot button issue, but I don't believe we should shy away from those things. We need to talk about them, get them out there, and that's what it's for. I would much rather have a town hall with 100, 200 people out on the lawn or in a building and be able to talk. But we actually had that set up at Northmore in their cafeteria. That got shut down with their decision to start school. Then we had it set up in their old gymnasium. They were so kind to be able to do that for us. That got shut down with the next stage with recommendations on gatherings. Then we actually worked on an outdoor venue. And again, interpreting the rules, unfortunately, was that was not possible. So we're going to do our very best to make this work, answer every single question, whether it's during that time or after or before, and just look at this as a time for input, and we'll go from there. But that's all it is, and it's a lot. It's about a lot more than just voting regulations. It's about our commitment to our lake, to our commitment to safe voting, and I really look forward to everybody taking part in that if you can. This week, Doug and the staff will be sending out information on the link, so you can join that just like the board meeting, and you can expect to see that this week. Okay, getting down to this Candlewood Lake outlook. So what does that mean? Sometimes I like to step back a little bit from the noise, if you will, and the things that are out there and take stock of where we are. And I probably do it too often, and Doug's probably heard it from me a few times, but I'm going to leave the challenges to Doug because we're having a little bit of a changing of the guard tonight. I'll talk in a second about Doug's first meeting officially with the board. But the last two meetings I've talked about challenges and opportunities and strategic priorities and things like that. And I'm passing that mantle to Doug because the role of the board is to oversee the association. And the one thing that Doug and I talked about is alignment. And we want alignment between the members, what their feedback is, what their wants and desires are, and all that, with the board. And then the board in their oversight role communicates with the association on expectations. Then it's up to Doug and his staff to take that feedback that we're providing and turning that into strategic priorities and action plans, and then go out there and basically get it done. So that's what that's all about, and Doug's going to talk more about that in just a minute. But my portion of this is, in terms of outlook, is the positive things. And when I stepped back a couple of weeks ago, I actually sent a note to the board about a number of things. It's not all inclusive, but I want to run through it real quick with you. And I know one of our major national news organizations had something around the world in 80 seconds or 90 seconds. I can't remember which one did that. And they had fancy videos. I don't have that. I'm going to just talk about it, and it might be around Candlewood in 2 minutes. So I'm going to do that real quick. But these are some of the things that strike me that are just so cool about Candlewood and so positive right now. First is condition of our lake, the clarity and all that, a marked improvement from other years. Great progress with our riprap from the efforts of lake siltation over the past couple of years. And there's just positive things with the lake. Overall health and condition of our dam and spillway, that of course is like the Achilles heel for any lake. And we take good care of that. I'm actually looking forward to our next State of Ohio inspection next year on the dam and spillway. Our surrounding natural environment throughout Candlewood continues to be terrific. I know that's something everybody really loves here. Dredging progress. While we've had some setbacks here and there, and we haven't been on the lake as many days as we want, we've made tremendous strides and tremendous progress on dredging. And for those of you that may not know all the details on this, we did something about a year ago. We did a hydrographic mapping of our lake, of all the dredging areas. And as a result, we have a color-coded map of where all the silt is, how thick the silt is, exactly how to find it, and the calculation of how much cubic feet or yards of silt there is to take out and exactly where it is. So that's something that Nate and Ron Hobbs and the entire crew is using to map out our dredging progress. So I think that's been a tremendous success. We really validated the original plan on dredging, and in so doing, we're saving really hundreds of thousands of dollars from the outsourcing of dredging that was originally also looked at. Stability and quality of our utilities and our operations and utilities, and that's something that I've kind of commented on, that we don't hear a lot about utilities, and that's probably a good thing, because that means that things are going along pretty good. So hats off and thanks to the efforts of Tracy and Mike and Nate and Kevin and the entire committee on utilities for a great job and continuing to do a great job. Current financial results in a very difficult environment. And 2 things there. The financials are current, number 1, so hats off to our staff on that. And also the financial results. And I'm not going to go into Charlie's part here, but we continue to look pretty good given the COVID environment where we fully expected to have bigger hits to our revenue. And we have had some, and particularly in lot sales, but we're still doing pretty good. Expenses are better than budget. In other words, they're under budget. And revenue, while it's under budget as well, it's starting to close the gap. And our lot sales is the one area that's the gap we're looking at. For those of you that may not realize it, we took out a federal PPP loan. That's the payroll protection program that was offered from the federal government. And we're working through that very strictly towards the forgiveness of that loan. That's in excess of $100,000. So that's just another real positive thing that not everybody may know about. We may have been off to a slow start, but there's a huge pickup in our dealing with abandoned properties and that strategy, and a lot of actions underway. So if you look around Candlewood, you're going to start to see more and more of that going on, where actions are being taken on properties that are no longer occupied and are not looking the best. I've already talked about committees, but after months off, the committees are super engaged and are off and running and providing information to the board and doing the work of the members. Multiple actions in Unit 4 to improve the infrastructure and appeal, the roads, culverts over there, that type of thing. big focus on our reserve funding goals, and with our assets continuing to rise in value, approaching close to $20 million, we still have at Candlewood zero debt. So what a huge positive that is. We're following a sound process with the Rustic Campground, which we closed last year, but we're looking now at what do we do, what are the options, and we've got a very good process there. We're addressing the Unit 4 shower houses in the correct manner. Those have fallen to where, and we believe at least, they're below where they need to be, and we are looking at options with a dedicated team of members, including Unit 4 members, to look at what kind of upgrades we can do over the winter and there to make that better for all those folks. We've got over 90% of our members on ACH. That's a win-win-win for everybody. So that's a good deal. If you've looked around the Harmon Lodge or Unit 4 lately, you've probably heard the smack of tennis balls and pickleballs and the bouncing of basketballs, and I think those courts are being used more than ever today, and that's terrific to see the young people, middle-aged and old, playing those sports out there. New docks at Harmon Lodge, South and North Dock, as far as the fixed docks, so that's those are getting a lot of use. Real estate sales in Candlewood are extremely robust, and what the message there is that people want to be here. After some difficulties with our conversion, we're seeing the benefits of our cloud-based management system, and that's starting to bear fruit, and we're getting to the end of some of the problems we had with that transition. Our member volunteers, what a huge part of Candlewood, and everything from our landscaping committee, community events, and just a recent thing, a member out of the blue said, hey, how would you like me to look at your insurance program and give you a unbiased professional opinion on it? And we took them up on it, and in 2 days they had it to me. I'll be sending that to Doug and to Charlie as our treasurer to look at and consider as we look at our insurance program going forward. So community volunteers are awesome. And last but not least on that is our go-forward commitment to setting goals, measuring results, and reporting on them. And that's going to be a repeat thing that you'll hear from Doug about setting goals, making sure there's measures for them, and then holding ourselves accountable by communicating to the members on how we're doing versus those goals. So I think that's a terrific list of positives, and in a second I'll turn it over to Doug to talk about some of those challenges that we like to refer to as opportunities sometime, things that we'll be tackling. You could call them number one priorities, if you will. So as I do that, the last item up there is general manager transition, and just want to officially, Doug was at our last meeting, but he was a guest. So tonight, this is Doug's actually first meeting. I want to welcome you, Doug, to your first meeting as general manager. And I mentioned we're kind of shifting roles here and letting Doug take over the action plans and the strategies and that kind of thing. So as I do that, the one thing we'll talk about again, I mentioned already though, is the importance of alignment between the members, the boards, and the association on priorities, and Doug will mention that. And finally, I did ask Doug to share just a little bit on his philosophies on leadership and management, and it'll tie that into what some of those priorities are after the fact. So that's my president's report, and with that, I will turn it over to Doug for the general manager report. Doug?
Thank you, Greg. It's been a great transition and so forth. I would like to just let everyone know my wife and I have been members here for 10 years, and it is truly a great place. I've been out to meet a lot of the board members and a lot of individuals in the community and working with the staff very closely. And I wanted to give a special thanks to Greg for being that individual in which I can talk to almost on a daily basis and sit down and really look at some of the issues moving forward on how we can make Candlewood a better place. And I think right at the top of that list would definitely have to be communication. And communication starts with individuals calling into the office with their concerns or so. What we want to do is create a more family-friendly environment in which we will give return phone calls in an efficient and timely manner. We want to be as polite as we possibly can. Those are things that we want to do to help change the culture some of the meetings that Greg and I have sat down and talked about. We've talked about the ever-changing environment that COVID-19 has. I work very closely with the individuals at the State Department and with Morrow County. I've worked very closely with Stephanie and Tori. They've been excellent on telling us the things that we need to follow and the recommendations they are making. And looking at the town hall and today, I appreciate everyone's input. I want to give a special thanks to Mr. Fike here, who came bright and early this afternoon to sit down and get everything ready for us. And it's an ever-changing environment. We've had many meetings, and I've met with all the committees, and I will do that on a regular basis, that I feel as if there's a committee here opened at the lodge, I want to be here and be present. It's something that I'm just not going to be periodically at the individual meetings. I will attend all meetings because I want to be well informed and share with the various board members what's going on. If you haven't contacted me directly, or you've sent me an email or something like that and I haven't responded, please give me a call. We have some issues that we're working through with our technology and so forth, and we've identified those problems, and moving forward, we've taken the necessary steps to answer some of those situations. We've met with the various committees, and we will be working with those committees moving forward to, again, accomplish the items that are on our agenda. We've worked in the areas of culverts, the Harmon property meeting, with security. We've increased security on the lake with our Morrow County Sheriff 2 weekends ago. We're renegotiating contracts with Kurtzman's on Wednesday. We are looking at our organizational process analysis on exactly what we can do to better meet the needs of all members of the community, on extending on our office hours that might look at being open on the weekends. I'll come in for a few hours. Our goal in doing so is having the office open to meet the needs of our community. And if we're closed on Tuesdays and Thursdays, as we are now, if you want to have a meeting with one of us, just give us a call and we will set that meeting up. We're available at any time and very flexible. Leslie and Renee and Kelly do extremely nice job in the office, and we will meet those needs of the members of the community. So just because we are temporarily closed on Tuesdays and Thursdays doesn't mean that we're not going to deal with the situations that you might have. Also, I've looked at the core values and setting goals and wanting to change culture. I've talked to Greg in the process of being hired on some of the visions that I've had in education and in my business experiences on changing the culture and valuing all those individuals that play a significant role. I think all of us want to feel valued and listened to. And I think that's what we can bring to the table, that we're going to sit down. If you have a problem or a concern, we're going to help address those. And I'm a firm believer in working with the staff to this point. They know that I'm very proactive on the fact that if there's a problem, we're going to have a solution. And I've often told them if we can't figure it out, then we know the people that we can call to get the right answers. I've talked to Jonathan several times on the process of doing the silt ponds and so forth, and we're going to meet on Monday to start implementing those strategies. And I thank him for that involvement. Moving forward, I just want to share a little bit with you on my vision of leadership, and I talk about changing cultures and everything, and I have to set that example and standard of excellence if I expect everyone else to follow that. So I've put together some slides just to indicate a little bit about my leadership style and my expectations of excellence. Moving forward, I just want to share a little bit with you. This is our beautiful Harmon Lodge, built several years ago, named after George Harmon, that we've had an opportunity to talk to, and we will meet again in the very near future to talk with him and his son about the vision of the Harmon property. And I'm a firm believer that leadership isn't a difference maker, it is the difference maker. I think it's critical for me to have expectations of excellence, and I've got to share that same philosophy, work habits, and work ethics as anyone else. And I've shared that and feel very strong about that moving forward. We have to raise the bar and allow everyone to feel as if they can play a significant role in that, and you have to have those expectations of excellence to reach that. It's critical for me to have expectations of excellence, and I've got to share that same philosophy, work habits, and work ethics. A leader is someone who earns trust, sets clear standard, and inspires people to meet those standards. You know, I can talk about expectations of excellence and so forth until I'm blue in the face, but if I don't do that myself, then people aren't going to buy into the philosophy and attitudes that will make a difference. And it's all about changing the culture and working with individuals and doing that little extra to feel as if they mean something. It inspires people to meet those standards. You know, I can talk about expectations of excellence and so forth until I'm blue in the face, but if I don't do that myself, we have to define that clarity of purpose and fundamentally a mission statement. And Greg and I have talked about this before. In our bylaws, we talk about a vision and so forth, but what is our actual mission here at Candlewood? I know that Lori and I are going to be involved with working with Armstrong, the internet provider, and we have to come up with a philosophy and a mission on exactly what our purpose here is at Candlewood, and we've got to market ourselves, and we have to make the difference that people want to come and see us. You know, the people that travel from Columbus, New Albany, Delaware, and throughout the state, we have to have that difference maker, and I think it's clarity of purpose and taking care of our natural resources like the lake and our infrastructures. Exactly what our purpose here is at Candlewood, and we've got to market ourselves, and we have to make. I've had the opportunity to talk with several board members, and I think what defines me is that anytime that you're faced with a situation, there's one of two ways that you can react, and I call that a character trait. I call that above the line, and it comes from being intentional, on purpose, and skillful when you make a decision or when you handle various situations, no matter if it's in utilities or dredging the lake or security or situations in the office. There's always a way that you can act positive, and what I refer to as acting above the line, and that simply means is it you doing the character traits that separate you from everybody else when no one else is watching. It's easy to make the right decision or do the right thing when you think eyes are focused on you, but when nobody else is watching, are you going to do the right thing? Are you going to act above the line? That separates us from anybody else, and it makes a world of difference. Below the line, you're just impulsive, on autopilot, and resistant to change. And that might be simply if somebody calls into the office and we hang up on them, or we don't treat them with dignity that they deserve, or security stopping individuals on the lake or on the roads that there's a right way to go about doing things in an inappropriate way. And I've talked with Greg many times just about having character that's above the line or showing the character that's below the line. Somebody calls into the office and we hang up on them, or we don't treat them with dignity that they deserve. Or for us to reach excellence, I truly believe excellence can be obtained if you care more than others think is wise, risk more than others think is safe, dream more than others think is practical, and expect more than others think is possible. You just have to, on a daily basis, wake up and want to be here and create an environment that you're enthusiastic about being here, because people can pick up on that if you don't want to be here, or if you're not happy with your job, or you don't know your neighbors and so forth. I think it's critical that you just have to have that mindset to always be positive. And I've shared that with Greg multiple times, and it's just your overall enthusiasm, and people can pick up on that. If it's just a simple returning of a phone call, or how you address a certain situation, and it's problems that we can all overcome and work through, and it's just positive affirmations and focusing on the positive things. Change will happen, and sometimes change is difficult to understand, and sometimes it's a slow process, but I think in the last 3 weeks we've started to implement that culture change, and people feel good about what's happening, and always feel as if you can call me or email me at any time, day or night, and if there's a problem that I can help solve, I'm more than willing to try to do that at any time. Sometimes change is difficult to understand, and sometimes it's a slow process, but I think in the last 3 weeks we've started to implement that culture change. And I've had this motto my entire life as an educator, as a coach, as a teacher, and I think it's very critical that you want to be the change that you wish to see in the world. If I want everyone to be positive and have what I refer to as positive affirmations, I myself have to be positive. It's easy in today's society to be negative and always point the finger at somebody else, or put the blame on someone else. You got to step up to the plate and be the difference maker and be the change that you want to see in other people. And we have a tremendous amount of people that are willing to help and have expertise in areas that I know very little about. I will pick up that phone and call those individuals, and they've always been able and willing to help, and we have to rely on those individuals out there that are experts and know a lot more than I do in certain areas. And I've indicated before, if I don't know what's going on, then I'll go to the experts to be able to help me. We just have to look at the process and performance and outcome. That's setting goals. The first time I've had a staff meeting here with the department heads, I said it's simply, I want you to tell me, what goals do you have that we can accomplish in the next 30 days, the next 60 days, the next 90 days? And I've shared with Greg before, in the office I'll have a whiteboard, and we're starting this on Tuesday after Labor Day. I refer to it as the war board. We're going to come in, and all the office help is going to have their to-do lists on that board, along with my to-do list. We don't accomplish those to-do lists today or this week, then they are priority items 1 and 2 for the following week. And it's something that we're going to have goals and in the office, and we're going to be able to do that. I think it's critical to believe in a continuous improvement plan. And it's a gradual, never-ending assessment on a daily basis, which we will focus on increasing the effectiveness and efficiency of the operations. And that's what I will be doing for the next 30 to 60 days. If we need help in security, if we need help in utilities, if we need help in the office or any of the areas, then we'll sit down with those key players and indicate that I want to make your job much more manageable. And if you need help in certain areas, then we're going to verify that through our process of analysis, and we'll get you the necessary help to make it run much more efficient for everybody involved. The keys to building a high-performance culture is just looking at the effective performance management process, create an environment in which people feel empowered and have authority, increase leadership capability at all levels, increase communication and collaboration, and enhance training and development. I can't expect individuals to do certain things if they haven't been trained in those areas. And unfortunately, with some of the transitions over the last several months, we haven't had the training in possibly lake patrol or in the office on the various programs that we're trying to implement. And we're going to make sure that we have the tools available in our tool bag to be successful. I can't expect individuals to do certain things if they haven't been trained in those areas. A couple other items I would like to just touch on is that being a former technology coordinator, and I've shared this with Greg and the office staff, I think there's just situations in which we need to continue to work through to try to address some of our issues with technology. And some of those are simply having compatible platforms to talk to one another. And it might be Windows talking to Windows, or Windows talking to Apples, or compatible operating systems. Looking back, it's something that we need to address just to bring us all up on the same playing field. And we've identified that. I've shared with Greg an action plan that will address the various areas that we have to talk about in technology, and also with our website. We're looking at other providers. We're looking at our current provider. I think we need to have a website that's up and much more user-friendly, and we should be able to access information on ECC regulations, on building codes, on all the various items on that website. And I think it's of the utmost importance in this age of technology, especially with COVID-19 and things along that line, that we have to have those capabilities, because we don't know how long this process is going to be in place, and we need to take advantage of definitely implementing technology that's up to current standards. I've had the opportunity to talk with security, and we have a plan in place that recommendations have been made moving forward. And as Greg refers to as low-hanging fruit, those are one of the first things that we need to do, is to address the technology and address the issues with our new TOPS program. Leslie has done a tremendous job putting together a plan in place that her and I have talked about, that it's our goal the Monday after Labor Day for people to walk into the office and we can truly verify what your balance is on your HOA fees. And also, we've had some issues with less than 10% of the individuals concerned about their water bills. We went out and spot checked those, and we've read those meters and so forth. And the ones that we've seen, we have a good percentage, I would say 98% of those in which we went out and spot checked are right on. So it's something that we need to continue to look at. The final thing is that I want to get a feel for how the community feels about certain issues. So Greg and I, in one of our meetings, have sat down and we've come up with 10 questions that we're going to be sending out to everyone that we have email address for, and just get a feedback and see where we might be in regards to some of the questions that we've put together. So it'll give us an indication on some of our strengths, some of our weaknesses. Are we doing what we should be doing as far as communicating with everyone in a timely manner? And we'll put that out probably within the next week or so. But I just wanted to thank Greg for the leadership, and I've laughed. It's a little bit different than public education. It's the first time probably in a 32-year career that we actually had a transition that was led by a transition team and somebody that really had what was in the best interest of Candlewood or the organization that I was coming into at hand, rather than just walking in and having somebody pat you on the back and say good luck. So it said a lot for the leadership here at Candlewood and the board's commitment that I've picked up the phone and talked to many of you. And are there issues? Absolutely there's issues. Are there things that we may not agree upon? I'm sure. But I will let you know that my heart's in the right place, and I will be available at any time to sit down and talk with you, and I will make decisions based upon what I think is in the best interest of everybody involved. So I just appreciate the opportunity, and I appreciate Greg for his leadership. So thank you.
Thank you, Doug. I'm going to turn it over to Charlie for the financial report.
Well, as Greg mentioned, we are extremely pleased to share that all of our financial reporting and all of our reconciliations are up to date, and we anticipate that this will continue. So it's nice not to have to apologize that we don't have current information, but I will apologize that somehow I managed to screw up this report and get some of the letters and numbers messed up, but anyway, the numbers are accurate. And the thing of note here is the current ratio, which we talked about last month as being the current assets divided by current liabilities. And you want to keep these between 1.25 and 2.0, with 2.0 being ideal. You can see a year ago, we were shy of that 1.25. And the reason primarily this is that we have steady income here at Candlewood. Everyone pays the same dues all year long. But our expenses are bell-shaped curve, with them being low in the beginning and end of the year and much higher in the middle of the year. So in the past, our current ratio during the summer months has looked kind of crummy. But now, due to some very good work on the part of our financial consultant, we have corrected the current ratio, and I think it will remain healthy from here on out, which means that we're in a good position to pay all of our bills and have a little something extra if something unexpected comes up. All right, well, I will also mention that a couple of slides appear to be missing there, but we are going to get the finances back in the Chronicle, in the September Chronicle, so you'll be able to look at some more detailed financial reports there. As Greg also mentioned, some of our, and also Doug, that some of our TOPS issues, that's our accounting program, are being resolved quite quickly. A rather stumbling point that we had not been aware of was discovered by the office, and that has cleared up quite a few issues that were making us not look as good as we actually are, so that's also helpful. And our the reserve funding goals we're getting closer to those as well. And as some of you probably know, the excess water billings, which had been intentionally delayed with the COVID crisis onset in March, all those bills have now been sent, so if you did not receive one, you don't have any excess water charges. And as those are paid, it will close the gap on our utility revenues. So that is encouraging. The Finance Committee has been very busy, and it really goes to show that the committees is where a lot of the work is done, and the Finance Committee is really a resource to all the other committees in terms of doing the numbers crunching. So we are in the process of budget preparation, and anybody committee-wise or just, if there are a group of you that want to see a dog park or whatever, this is the time our budget work, the timeline has been submitted. The final preparation and presentation of it will be completed in December for voting upon and approval. So anything you would like to see budgeted for next year needs to be submitted to the office as soon as possible. So those can be sent to Leslie, as you can see there at Candlewood Lake US. So send any requests that you have, and I hope we see a lot of them. What we will be doing is identifying the cost to put each of those different ideas together, and we will share them. I don't know if it'll be by email or through the Chronicle, and let people know, okay, if a dog park is what's on the agenda, and I'm making up these numbers, but let's just say it's going to cost us $50,000. What that translates to is that if we approve this, then everyone will need to pay 75 cents a month more, or whatever it is in their And then we would be voting and saying, all right, is this something we want enough that we're all willing to pay 75 cents a month or whatever the charge would be? So get your requests in, and that will be looked at. A couple of the other projects that we're working on, we're assisting long-range planning with the ad hoc rustic campground group, their ad hoc committee, doing an income and expense history so we can identify and document actually the history of the income and expenses so we can see how much money we would want to put into it to restore and bring it up to speed so it can be reopened, or if that doesn't make sense financially, how we would make better use of the property. The dredging assessment is also being worked on. Utilities has requested that they see their income and expense reports separately, and those will be delivered at the end of this quarter, which is right now, so they may already have their first quarter income and expense reports. So that has been handled by our finance consultant. And our audit, which has been delayed by our COVID issues, is in the process of being scheduled. So we'll be doing a very late audit this year. Normally it happens by April. And because of COVID, they were not, actually they were not allowed to come out to do an audit. So we will have that handled shortly, and then we will have a deeper audit done on a regular, the regular one done in the spring and scheduled. In the process of being scheduled, so we'll be doing a very late audit this year. Normally. All right. There has been question as to which financial reports and in what format they should be shared on the website. So the Finance Committee will be presenting to the board a list for their approval at the September meeting, and the plan then is to, as soon after that as our technology people can do it, we will get that on the website. And additionally, while we have a lot of financial policies, they aren't all collected into one location. So we are, that's the royal we, mostly these are office personnel, are handling at the Finance Committee request to formalizing these in an actual book that, probably an e-book, but something that there is one place that all the policies are pulled together and can be reviewed, whether it's when does health insurance begin for a new employee to, I don't know, anything else. How all the when the reports are due. So everything that comes under finances for Candlewood Lake will be in a more organized and documented situation. So that'd be helpful. Because right now they're scattered in files all over the place, and I feel very sorry for the office personnel who are having to look for them. So our next meeting is Monday, September 21st at Harmon Lodge at 6 o'clock, and hopefully we will have a lifting of the 10-person rule, and I can invite all of you to attend. It's a lot more fun when we have people who throw out questions and participate, so hope to see you then. Because right now they're scattered in files all over.
Thank you, Charlie. Next slide. We're going to continue on with the committee reports, and if the various committee heads can just kind of briefly go through these. Thank you.
At Harmon Lodge at 6 o'clock, and hopefully we will have a lifting of the 10-person rule, and I can invite all of you to attend. It's a lot more fun when we have people who throw out questions.
They're working? Okay, good. Okay, so the target effort for this year is our three goals that we established last meeting. The first of those goals is developing a tree policy. The working group that is working on that is championed by Jerry Rule with help from Sandy Petty and Bill Schubert. Okay, so they met and are formulating a statement of scope. Goals that we established on how to identify, or what do the trees mean for Candlewood Lake. tree policy. What's important about them? Do we value them or not, etc. And that they're trying to put that down in writing to serve as an umbrella statement for their continuing work. The next goal is on compliance improvement, and Daryl Young is championing that, and he's working on a Neighbors Helping Neighbors initiative, and that is an ongoing work that he's involving the community in. The code document consolidation group, and there's been a lot of discussion about that. We've got code scattered between deed restrictions, policies, and the ECC manual. We're trying to get the pertinent codes under one document so that we can more easily use them, and we can train people on them. And it's as much for the community's understanding as ours. We had 2 variances that were approved for decorative fences. As you know, fences are not allowed unless a variance is issued, and we will issue variances from time to time on decorative fences. 2 fines were issued for a non-complying shed, and there was a lot of discussion about metal siding for outbuildings. Currently, the deed restrictions authorize wood and or vinyl only, and the committee at this point has no ability to change or modify that. In terms of permits, we had 19 permits that were approved. 10 of them were trees, which is a little higher than normal, and there's as you can see, there's a sampling, a scattering of permits in the 1 and 2 category. We had no new violations that were issued, and the previous violations that were issued last month are being addressed successfully by the lot owners. And I would add that the next meeting is September 8th at 6:30.
Thank you, Ron. Appreciate it. And next up is long-range planning. I think that's John McFarland.
So we have 3 items that we're focusing our attention on right now, which is the reserve study, the rustic campground, and the Unit 4 shower house. Right now, we are having a meeting this week on Thursday to discuss the reserve study. And with the rustic campground, Charlie and Leslie gave us the revenue and expense report. So we're in the process of reviewing this. And Bill Schubert this Thursday will have a drawing for the Unit 4 shower house. And our next meeting is going to be September 14th, 6:30 at Harmon Lodge.
Thank you, John. Okay, next slide. Okay, utilities, Kevin.
Here I guess we're going to go right into metrics, it looks like, instead of the summary of reports. Okay. Is there another slide? Keep going, I'll tell you when. Okay, well, apparently it didn't get included. Let me see if I can work off the top of my head. We've encouraged a separate reserve fund. I understand from Greg that that's being incorporated into a larger discussion of overall reserves, which is great. we do get to the discussion on metrics, you will see we do have a specific recommendation for a metric for reserves. We had some issues regarding, there were a couple water line breaks, there was one sewer break. I don't know the details, those weren't provided to us. But probably the most important thing is that our last meeting, which was August 10th, I distributed copies of a document that can be used to begin to do a high-level assessment of the various components of our water and sewer utility system. It comes from an instrument developed by a national water association, actually in another country, but very applicable to what we do here at Candlewood. And then some special questions that relate to a water well system, which is how our water supply is provided here at Candlewood. Those were distributed to Nate. He was the staff member present at our August 10th meeting, with a request that he share that with Tracy Lilly and with Lonnie McKee, and hopefully I'll get those back in short order. It's really a pretty straightforward document. It just simply scores it on a 1 to 5 scale on most of them. Some are on an acceptable, unacceptable level. But what that should do is help us in terms of developing our 2020 budget or 21 budget, and also provide appropriate input for long-range planning as it relates to having adequate funds available for when stuff gets to the end of its useful life. There were other things, but those were the highlights. We've made some progress on some of our major projects. One that seems to be lagging is the replacement of the filter media in the wastewater treatment plant. Apparently, we're still trying to get bids for that. I apologize for not having a more detailed report, but I was going to rely upon my slides. So that's it for now, and I'll come back to preventures later.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Did we go by? Back up and see, did we miss one from, keep going back. Keep going. Keep going. All right, I guess we didn't. I'm sorry. Yeah, just go back forward again to maintenance. And Jim, before you do maintenance, I'll jump in. Security, obviously, we won't have a report on that. The next meeting is September 10th at 7 p.m. at the Harmon Lodge on security. And part of the change with Bill's resignation too is also I'll be looking at someone to take over security committee. That is actually one of the committees that a board member has to be the chair of by our bylaws. So we'll be talking about that at the board level after the meeting or between now and the next meeting. Was there anything on bylaws before we move to maintenance? You're good. Next meeting was September 3rd at 6:30 p.m. And then we do have, before we jump into maintenance, I got to ask Lake and Siltation to come up. That's Gary Anderson.
Yeah, I'm Gary Anderson, Unit 10, 183. I'm the community liaison for Lake Consultation. And before I get started, I just want to point out, I looked up that for all the people looking in on YouTube, that it does add 75 pounds to your image. And I'm actually thinner and much better looking in person. So I'll just start with that. We had our first organizational meeting for Lake Consultation on August 3rd. And in that meeting, we finalized our membership, which I think we're going to have a talk or a motion on that. We did at that meeting set priorities for 2020. Our first priority was sediment ponds at the one-lane bridge. And our next meeting will be like on location. The committee will meet at the one-lane bridge September 1st at 6:30 and to discuss the plans for the sediment ponds so that we're all informed of that. The other priorities is a dock at the West Beach and some kayak launches. And the committee has approved 2 kayak launches one at the north dock and one at the south dock, and they're actually really neat. They're so good that I'm actually thinking about getting a kayak myself, so to do that. The dock at West Beach, we're still investigating at that project. We're also going to review the riprap on what still needs to be completed on Candlewood property and members' properties. So we'll review that to see if we can get all that finished for this year. We have other maintenance initiatives that could come up in 2020, and one of them may be the repair of the check dam at the one-lane bridge, or some aeration projects that will help keep the lake clean as well. All four of those projects that I just listed are already budgeted for 2020 and have money set aside for it, so that all those are there. The committee also discussed the buoys in the lake, on how some of them have moved and may not be in the right place at this time. And I think Ned and another committee member actually went out and did a map of the buoys that's in the lake, and we'll have a recommendation on which ones needs to be moved correctly. But we probably will not do anything at this boating season. We'll probably wait and make sure they're correct for the next boating season. The committee also discussed issues on what happens when a boat may sink, and I think somebody told me there may have been 3 boats this season so far that have sunk. And we had one committee member volunteer to go out and look at a local vendor to see if they, by chance, provide that service to get the boat. And he reported back to me tonight that the vendor he was thinking of does not do that. So I think we still need to go out and find out if a boat would sink, what we would have to do, or at least give our membership some vendors that are places that they can call and to get that handled. I do know that the maintenance people has the things that goes around to hose in any gas leak or anything there to do that. Other discussion items, we talked about the water quality in the lake and the testing of that water quality. And we talked to Doug, he was in our organizational meeting, that we think that the water quality needs to be published so that all members see what the water quality is and maybe tell us where the test was done. I don't know if it's always done at the beach or there's other places around, so that the membership can feel confident that the lake quality is the best it can be. And as we talked about this, there was an initiative that came in and tested about 100 fish looking for disease or anything. And of the 100 fish that they took out looking at the lake, they did not find disease or any problem in any fish that came out of this lake. So the fishermen should feel good about that. And also kind of tells us maybe how improved and stuff the lake may be getting with some of our other initiatives. We did also discuss the possibility of some of our local boats here leaving the lake and going to another lake and coming back and possibly bringing back parasites or zebra mussels, whatever those are. I'm not a boater. And because we don't have water at the boat launches that we have, where those boats can be washed off and that's be cleaned up before it comes back into the lake. So that's an initiative that we're going to look at some more for that. And again, our next meeting is September 1st at the one-lane bridge, so that we can, with Doug and Nate, I think probably will be there, so the full committee can understand the plan to do that. Any questions? Hopefully I didn't talk too fast.
You're good.
All right. Thank
Anything? Thank you, Gary. Appreciate it. Jim, you got something on maintenance there?
Yes, it's working. Now?
What's he need? Need a microphone?
Thank you. We met on August 12th. Just to update you on some of the projects. The front entrance sign is slated to be completed by mid-September. And to address the concern I was just mentioned, the water is to be installed at the north dock this year and hopefully at the south dock next year. If we have time, it'll be done at both docks this year, but we don't think we'll make it. The RV lodge floor is complete. We've started work on the 10 abandoned campers in Unit 4, and we are updating the street signs. Next. Next meeting will be September 9th at 4 p.m. at Harmon Lodge. At our meeting this month, Nate was with us as well as Doug. We appreciate it, Pat. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jim. I don't think there's anyone here on landscaping committee. Yeah, I just want to say I've seen a whole lot of work being done in those beds and out here and around the lodge and around the pool, and there's a lot of good people volunteering for that kind of work, and it's been hot doing it. So thanks to all them that are helping with landscaping. Ned, did you have anything at all on roads, culverts yet? Nope. And Lori, pool, anything to next month report? And I don't think there's community events here tonight. They'd be remote, right? So, okay. All right, thanks to all the committees for your reports. And we'll move into new business. And the first item of new business is a motion to appoint Randy Cobb to the Utility Committee, an addition of Randy Cobb to the Utility Committee. COMBS. I'll make the change. Okay, do I hear motion? Chris, do I have a second? Jonathan? Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay. Second one, also committee members to appoint Bonnie Thomas and Patty Love to the Bylaws Committee. I'll entertain a motion. Charlie and Lori, your second? Yeah. You got beat by a split second. Okay. If no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay. All right. The next one is our wins the prize for the longest motion of the night. I'm going to turn this one over to Lori. Have you got a work to talk through this one?
This was a motion that was worked on by the Bylaws Committee last year, but never got to the board because of the COVID issue. And it was done mainly to prevent Airbnbs, which we already feel there might be one or two here. And one of the big problems with them, they hand over the keys to a boat and off they go, not knowing our rules and regulations. So I will read this. This is our changes to Article 3, Section 2. A renter or tenant is defined as a non-member of the association who resides in a Candlewood residence where the property owner does not reside. Vacant lots at Candlewood Lake may not be rented. When a resident is rented, a Candlewood Lake tenant rents agreement must be submitted to the association office within 5 days of signing the lease and prior to occupancy. All rentals must be at least 6 months or longer. No transient occupancy or short-term rentals will be permitted in the Candlewood Lake subdivision. A member may not rent a residence until after the first year of ownership of said residence. The member wishing to rent the residence must have been a member in good standing for the entire year. An HOA operating assessment must be paid by both the property owner and the tenant, unless the owner is a current resident and pays assessments on their individual non-contingent residence. Tenants have no voting rights and shall not be members of the Board of Trustees. Regardless of the number of residential lots owned by the same person, the voting member is entitled to only one vote in member meetings. Rental properties owned by a corporation, including LLCs, partnership, or organizational ownership, will only be granted one vote for all properties under the given ownership as deeded. A member or those with a security interest, executor, bankruptcy trustee, or those with a power of attorney may rent no more than 2 deeded residents in total. Properties held by persons or firms such as those who hold a security interest, serving as executors, bankruptcy trustees, or holding a power of attorney are not eligible to rent properties unless their name is on the deed and all rental conditions are met. The voting member, as defined in the bylaws, must be designated at the Candlewood Lake Association office at the time of new membership. While the renter-tenant is not considered a member, they may use the facilities as long as their assessments are paid to date. Current members who have rental properties of 6 months or longer will be grandfathered until the sale or transfer of the property or until the current renter is behind in their assessments for 90 days or greater, or continued noncompliance with the bylaws, articles of incorporation, deed restrictions, CLOs, ECC regulations, or any other governing documents by either the renter, tenant, or the owner member is no longer in good standing. And if this is approved by the board tonight, this will go to the membership for a vote.
Thank you for that clarification. This is just for the board to recommend this, and it does have to go to a full member vote because it's part of the bylaw change. Thank you, Lori. All right, do we have a motion? Lori, is it? Lori, second was who? Jim?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, discussion. Dara?
I've got, I guess, a number of points and questions. Lori, thanks for clarifying the intent of this, which really, to me, just the first couple sentences in the modification, all rentals must be at least 6 months or longer, no transient occupancy or short-term rentals will be permitted in Candlewood Lake subdivision. That really accomplishes what you said the intent in the statement was. But then it goes on to cover a number of other items and put a number of other stipulations, which will be difficult for the office to manage. Ned had done some research. It sounds as if less than half of the current renters in Candlewood currently, we believe, are even registered, which it just goes to show if we had more stipulations, people will be less likely to register if there's more stipulations. They'll just rent, so be it under the table or whatever. Not knowing what legal rights we have to restrict that, I really question how far we go here, and then also the management of it. Like, for instance, down where it says unless the owner is a current resident, is that a full-time resident? Is that a part-time resident? How do we qualify that? Because, if they just own a residence and say it sits vacant, does that qualify them for the, for that exclusion? Additionally, on paragraph 3, regardless of the number of residential lots owned by the same person, the voting member is entitled to only one vote. I think that needs to be italicized because I'm looking in the original document. I don't see that language in there. And then the question is, like, if there's 2 names on the deed, you actually get 2 votes today. And so would we be restricting a person that would we be further restricting a person that rents a property if they rented? Like, say for example, there's two names on the deed, they get 2 ballots today. Would they only get 1 ballot if they rented a property, if they registered and rented a property? So I question the solid foundation of that language. Additionally, when we start rolling in LLCs, partnerships, or partners organizations, how would that pertain if the member has an LLC? Like, so many landlords create LLCs in their own name, or are the chairman of an LLC to reduce liability, personal liability. And so do they get an additional vote, which in another location in the bylaws, it states that there's only 1 vote per person. So it could potentially be conflicting with another area of our bylaws and deed restrictions. And then the last one, I'm guessing, it didn't have anything in here, but I'm guessing when it says grandfathered, we would put the date that this actually passes and goes through, correct? Because we always have to have dates in the rules so we know when they were technically grandfathered. So I guess with all those numbers of questions, I think we went too far with this one, maybe, and we maybe trim it back to the 2 sentences of the 6 months or longer rentals and the no transients, which would take care of the Airbnbs and all that, which I completely 100% agree with. Going this far, I almost question that we strike the current rule and rewrite a new rule, because we're trying to piecemeal one in, and there's a lot of gaps here. That was a lot in a short amount of time, but that's what I got.
Any thoughts? Any other thoughts on it before we refer to Lori?
I just had a question on the member wishing to. A member may not rent a residence until after the first year of ownership of said residence. I was just curious why that was, if there was discussion around that, why that was a recommendation. And I mean, what comes to mind is somebody who might want to buy the property next to them and build a house and rent it. Like, so if they wanted to do that, foregoing rent for a whole year, if they did something like that, might keep them from doing that. That was number one. And then the second thing I had is the very last 2 words, good standing. Do we define good standing anywhere? I mean, I think I know what it means. It means you're current, but maybe we might want to say that versus good standing. Just a suggestion. Those are the only 2 things I thought.
One of the reasons they wanted them to be having owned the property for at least a year, we've had companies approach us about buying several lots for the main purpose of putting a house on it and renting them. That was, and one I believe was up to, we wanted almost 100 lots, and we don't want something like that.
Now, it is in our deed restrictions, like, all properties are single-family residences. So it's not a situation where they're going to build like big condo buildings or something like that, right? It would just be like, literally, like, say they bought 100 lots, they'd build 100 single-family homes according to our codes, and then attempt to rent them.
Any other thoughts from around the board? Lori, what are your thoughts on Daryl's points?
I don't know what everybody else thinks about it. George, do you have any comments on it?
I think Daryl made some good points. I don't think there anything that can't be addressed with the current language, frankly. The LLCs, it says in the bylaws that each LLC has to nominate 1 person to be the voting member. If you have an LLC that owns multiple lots, I think that would easily apply. You'd still just get 1. The problem we would run into is if the owner of the lots created an individual LLC for each lot. And so if you had somebody owned 4 lots and they had LLC 1, LLC 2, LLC 3, LLC 4, which a lot of people do just because they don't want to combine the assets into one LLC, That question would be, would that person who's the single member LLC have 4 votes or not? So that hasn't been, I don't think, really addressed sufficiently in this. That's the only issue that I saw that I had a concern with what Daryl said.
The other thought I had on, Lori, on your response about having corporations come in and buy multiple, buy a lot, or buy a number of lots to rent, could we not just directly address that by saying, putting a limit on how many somebody could rent to keep that from happening? That would still enable somebody who, wants to buy someplace and rent it, would still enable them to not have to forego 12 months of rent to do that. I'm just thinking out loud for, anybody that might want to do that.
Yeah, that's the point I was going to make. So I totally get where you're coming from on the 1-year stipulation, but the problem is it's not investor friendly, right? So there's been houses in the past that have gone to sheriff's sale, and we want them to sit idle or be rehab, go back on the market. It's just, that makes it challenging from like an investment standpoint.
So they could be investing in them only to rent, or not to sell.
I think you have to look at it both ways, but if you're investing in it to rent, you're basically foregoing 12 months of rent, which, like, if I was investing in a property, I wouldn't see that as appealing, I guess.
Well, to Jonathan's point, it provides the fastest return, right? So more people would consider that to be an eligible investment. Like, for example, if you owned a current residence and wanted to rehabilitate a property, you knew you could rent it for some period of time until you could then, say, transition a residence or something like that. We're really restricting a lot of people here, and the language is very broad. And I mean, we're not effectively managing rentals today by the evidence of, I think what was it, 8 or 9? There was 8 currently. There's 8 current rental tenant agreements on record in the office, and I could only suspect that that the number is larger than that. The number that was reported theoretically was up to 20, so we're less than 50% now. Today we're managing, and there is language in our bylaws that directly addresses it. I think we want to come up with items that promote people to register, for the renter tenant agreement, but then also, directly address. I do like the 2 sentences in there talking about the transient and the Airbnbs and things like that. Although those companies, I think, are finding themselves in other legalities with people doing the things that we don't like them to do, right? Like turning the keys over to a boat, for example, having a tremendous house party with an absorbent number of guests, violating our quiet hours, things like that. There's a ton of other rules that would address abuse of property that we have on the record, and I would suggest that we look to enforce those. And this is just a very, very broad and hard to manage policy. So I'm recommending that we send it back and trim some things down or revise it tremendously. But I think to do that, we'd have to vote it down and send it back.
Can I make one comment on this? And one of the other problems I think we have on rentals is that we let the renter make the HOA payment. Is there any way we could write language into it where the owner has to pay that HOA? Because I took over a rental property and they were in HOA fees back over $2,000 they owed the association. So I don't know if there's any language we can put in there to make that happen. With the ACH, it makes it easier.
If there's language in there that talks about the owner responsible.
They are ultimately responsible. A lot of them will rent it and make the renter pay it, or they just quit paying it. Because if they don't live here, they don't care.
Right. That goes back on the owner, right?
Correct.
Okay, yeah, and I guess I would just add, given this is a bylaw change, which would, unless we were going to expedite this, would be in May. Let's send it back and make the adjustments that are being suggested here and any others, and work through the process. So, but we do have to go forward and vote
So we do have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? Okay. Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion fails.
And Lori, I understand good standing is defined, so we just need to capitalize that if you leave that in. Capitalize good standing.
Okay. Lori, is the next motion, do you want to table that one?
Might as well.
The 125? Okay. Okay. So the next motion then is from the Utilities Committee, and I'll just read the motion here. To immediately adopt water and sewer operational metrics and associated measures, and to immediately comply with the state of Ohio's expectations regarding public water supplier metrics and measures as outlined in the Candlewood Lake Utilities Performance Management document dated August 2020, slides 10 through 13. And I probably provided more than everybody wanted over the past week on this kind of a thing. But Kevin, do you want to just do a brief?
Yeah, I will. And, he's trying to
well,
find that.
first let me
Sure,
see if we have a motion. Do we have a motion? Jim, a second? Daryl? Thank you. Some discussion?
You all set?
Kevin? Yep.
Okay,
Go
great.
ahead.
Really, this kind of goes along with what Doug said in his remarks, and it emanates from the philosophy of you can't manage what you don't measure. And this is about setting goals, having measures, and then accountability. So we actually started on this process probably mid-year in 2019. We really didn't get to a resolution point until November. And then in December, the state of Ohio followed our lead and made it mandatory for every community water system in the state to provide at least 6 metrics that the state had stipulated, 5 of which they were expressly stated, and then the option to create one of your own. The committee had originally developed 9, of which one of those was an overlap or duplicative of what the state of Ohio asked for. And if I understand the board has already seen all these, so I won't go through them all in detail, but if the keyboard operator could get to the one that says State of Ohio required metrics. There you go. And again, I apologize, this is a little hard to see. I tried to make it as real by actually capturing what the state sent out to all the community water systems. But as you can see, the very first one deals with an operating ratio. That's duplicative of one of the metrics that the committee itself had come up with. And let me back up and just say that the committee looked at more than 200 possible metrics that were contained within a US EPA document on metrics for community water systems and sewer systems. We narrowed it down to a list of over 30, and then we selected 9. And again, one of those ended up being the same as the state of Ohio. The next one is operating costs to produce water, and don't move the slide, stay there. And then the next one is deals with breaks, just keeping track of those. And then the idea of a bunch of measurements. I don't consider these to be metrics, I just consider these to be measures. In other words, how much of this are you doing? If the board wants us to convert those into metrics, we can, but the state of Ohio doesn't ask for those. They just simply want to know what your measures are. And then the next one is very routine type of service versus unplanned services. We're now getting those reports on a semi-regular basis from staff, which is very helpful. And then the last one from the state of Ohio is simply come up with one of your own. And as I said, we developed 9, of which one of them, again, is duplicative of the state. So we had 8 that were unique. 2 of those relate to financial viability. 3 of those relate to infrastructure strategy and performance. And then 3 of those also relate to product quality and service delivery. Again, there's all kinds of metrics. We recommended some target numbers. One of those was on reserves. I was asked, well, does it have to be 30%? No. As I explained, the board can set whatever it is. I know there's a bigger goal for all of Candlewood to set a reserve target with utilities somewhere within that. It's already been mentioned before, water and sewer assets are quite a big chunk of the change here in terms of assets owned by Candlewood. So I think that adequate reserves to deal with those down the road are going to be critical. And again, that goes to the assessment that's underway to understand what is the condition and the performance of our existing assets. And if there are some that are in need of more immediate attention than others, then that really fits into long-range planning, fits into the budgeting process, but we need to know those things. So again, it's all about managing through measurement, and hopefully these will be useful. Perhaps at some future point we can amend these, probably to add a few more. I think some of these are done by just awareness by our staff and our consultant, but the idea was to make this more apparent not only to the committee, but to the full board, and more importantly to all the residents of Candlewood.
I just had one question.
Sure.
If we adopt these, I'm sure you probably talked about this, but does it, in your all's estimation, does it create any extra burden or work hours, staffing on your team, on our team, I should say?
It doesn't seem to, and no one to date has expressed that. Lonnie McKee, who is the outside consultant to us on water utilities, has offered to do this first run through of those. He's waiting on certain data that we need to do that, and that goes to the request for financial information that sometimes has to be a little bit more detailed than just simply income and expenses. But largely, not an issue.
Okay.
Again, a lot of these, well, several of these are financial, so if we have financial information, we have the metrics.
Right.
Just have to do the math.
Okay. Any other questions?
So I guess my only question is what was the feedback from the staff? Were they in favor of, opposed to?
They were a part of the process, and they helped pick the actual metrics. So I'm assuming they were okay with it.
Sounds good. That's all. I just didn't want it to be a forced burden situation, right?
And you said there are 5 required by the state of Ohio. Would we be doing those 5 plus these additional 8?
Correct. Right. That's our recommendation. Obviously, it's up to the committee or to the board, but the 5 from the state of Ohio, you don't have a choice. We have to do those. It's required by law. The others are, we recommend as valuable to the community.
Okay. Any other comments or questions before we vote? Okay. So you've seen the motion. Thank you, Kevin, to adopt these metrics as we called out earlier. We have a motion moved, we have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. I oppose, same sign. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Kevin. Okay, that concludes our scheduled new business.
Sorry, I actually need to make a motion to appoint Bill Miller, Gary Anderson, and Rob Turner to the Lake Consultation Committee. We missed those names.
I'll second.
Bill Miller, Gary Anderson, Rob Turner. Who was the second? Gary. Okay, we have a motion on the floor to appoint Bill Miller, Gary Anderson, and Rob Turner to Lake Consultation.
Previous members, they weren't.
Right.
You guys might want to mic up for the sake of YouTube.
Yep, so the motion was to reassign or re-add Bill Miller, Gary Anderson, and Rob Turner to the roster of Lake and Siltation Committee. Okay, no other discussion. We have a first, we have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Is there any other board topics for discussion before we go to member participation? Hearing not, let's see, do we have anything coming in at all?
We do. We have a couple coming in. This is Chris, so everybody online, I see we've been averaging about 50 people watching, so appreciate everybody's participation. That's as many, if not more, than we typically have in attendance, so I think this is a good thing. I was reading an article I shared with Greg this week about specifically on HOAs and virtual meetings, and it says their recommendation was to adopt this not just during the pandemic, but going forward. You know, when we can have our membership back in the room with us, continue to broadcast, and you know, those out of state, those out of town, those that couldn't make it, can continue to participate. So just something for us to think about. So for those of you listening in, membership participation will be via the live chat. If you scroll down under the live stream, you should see it there. So far we have two. Just submit your name and unit and lot, and I'll represent it here. So I have two at the moment. I'll read these, and whoever wants to address can address. The first one is from Deb at Unit 9, Lot 281. And her question is, there was some confusion on the lake this weekend. I am confirming we do have security on the lake now and enforcing our lake rules and safety.
Yeah, I could take that one, and Doug, you can jump in if you want. And thanks Deb for the question. And yes, our commitment is 100% to have security on the lake on an ongoing basis. I know we've had some fits and starts this year, as we heard back in June and July. We have had some staffing issues as we planned at the beginning of the boating season this year. We weren't really fully up to speed on our staffing or our certifications, but it's a number one priority for Doug, as he mentioned earlier. Not only we have done those certifications, but now it's a matter of catching up on our full-time and part-time staff that are trained on the lake to fill those roles. But the 100% commitment is there to do that and to fill out those hours, particularly on the weekend, and then sporadically, unpredictably during the week, during peak and non-peak hours. So thank you for that question.
Good. Thanks, Greg. We have two questions from Eric Hill, Unit 11, Lot 52. When will the Chronicle be available online again?
Give that one to Doug.
Moving forward, the Chronicle, I believe, has been distributed and it should be online and so forth. Is that correct, Leslie, at this time? So it is online and so forth. Oh, the internet was down, but as soon as the technology issues are resolved, that will be available online and to those individuals who want a hard copy also. Yeah, the dates and so forth, we're working on that. It is our intent to have the Chronicles out by the 25th of each month moving forward. We're going to determine exactly how many issues that we're going to have in a year cycle and so forth. We're probably looking at 10 or 12. We're also going to look at the possibility of doing away with the current until we get all the issues worked out with the Chronicle and published in a timely and efficient manner.
Great, thank you, Doug. And the second question from Eric is, I would appreciate any insight on the extensive logging in our Unit 11. This is Guiding Star, Rigdon, and Sugar House Lane. Any insight on the extensive logging in Unit 11?
Power company going through for the power lines, or is it something else?
Yeah, I'm trying to, Unit 11. I'm trying to figure out if this is. Okay, yeah, I don't know 100% the answer on that, other than there's a member is taking down some trees that are dead, dying, and some actually are falling, clearing some lots that they own, not for development, but just clearing trees that are problematic and dying and dead, that type of thing. I don't know if this is that particular area or not.
Ron, do you know, has there been any permits in Unit 11? Tree permits? There was 10 in the report, but we don't know which units those were in, do we?
Not off the top of my head, but there was no permits issued for large scale.
Okay.
He said there is no permits issued for large scale removal, so that.
Right. So can we have Brian look into that, and then we'll address that at our next ECC meeting. You know, I think we're going to start to maybe even move towards, you know, when Candlewood's removing trees, following the same policies and procedures, and that goes back to the policy that Ron talked about in the meeting. One of our goals this year is to develop a comprehensive tree strategy, so we have good answers to these questions. So thank you for your question, and the ECC will follow up. Can you state again, Chris, the roads so that Ron can send that to Brian?
Yeah, it's Guiding Star, Rigdon, and Sugar House Lane. Do we know if do these chats, when these things get posted to our YouTube channel, do the chats stay there? Does anybody know? The chats do stay there, so we can refer back to this if we need to, and we'll see it. So Eric, we'll get back to you, please. The next ECC meeting, you said, Daryl, we'll have an update.
Yeah, Ron will put it on the agenda for the ECC meeting, and it'll be in the minutes then.
So we'll look into it and understand what it is and get back to you on that.
Yep, we'll look at it. We'll put it in the minutes. So just look in the ECC minutes, and they'll see it there.
Got it. Thank you for those, Eric. Nancy Wagner, Unit 3, Lot 55. She said, I missed the first part of this meeting, so apologize if you covered this. I heard that there is consideration for allowing jet skis on the lake. Is this true? I can take that one. No, there has not been any consideration for allowing jet skis on the lake. Nancy, thank you for the question. Yeah, it's purely, it was actually part, I'm sure we'll probably, I know there's a question submitted for that, actually for the town hall for this coming weekend, and we did talk about that a little bit at the Lake and Boating Rules and Regulations Work Group. It's, pretty much purely a safety issue, given the size of the lake, the speed of jet skis, and if you get a number of those on here whizzing around it, those things are capable of the speed they're capable of going on. It's purely a safety issue. Anything else to add? Yeah, and the meeting where if you would like to ask more questions about that or address that further is, we've announced at the beginning of this meeting, is going to be 10 a.m. It will be a virtual, we don't know, it'll be YouTube, so right here on the same channel. And it will be a virtual town hall, Lake and Boating Rules and Regulations Town Hall at 10 a.m. Saturday.
Yeah, and a reminder will go out this week on how to access that and agenda, et cetera.
Perfect. Thank you, Nancy. And then we have one comment from Steve English. Thank you for the residents who don't live here. I think that was in regards to continuing to broadcast these if we decide to do that. That's it for membership input. Thank you, everybody. I think that went fairly smooth.
All right, if there's no other comments, there's some members out here, anybody, anything else? We're good? All right, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Question? Ned, go ahead.
No, he's moving to adjourn.
Oh.
Sorry.
Second? Chris?
Are we going into executive session?
Yeah. We are, so. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Good. Yeah, and I think we should probably just go downstairs. It'll be faster.
Thank you, everybody. That concludes the meeting for this evening, for those of you online.